Hi, I'm Jana. I'm an illustrator from Berlin, and today I will show you how I make these little portraits. I call them mini portraits, and I normally draw them in big batches that I call mini portrait marathon. They are ink and watercolor illustrations based on photos that I get as private commissions, and I do them every couple of months, normally around the holidays where people are buying gifts more often. So I just completed this mini portrait marathon that was Valentine's Day themed. I was focusing on drawing couples. Of course, some of them ended up being family portraits as well. I started doing these portraits on this small format this year. I just find them so much more manageable, faster, easier, less intimidating to do. They are an option for me to make commissions more affordable for everyone, and people have really been loving them. They make great gifts, and I thought that now before Valentine's Day or any time that you're watching this, I could show you how you can make your own. So mine are really simple and not too realistic, but still with these simple shapes and kind of uniform way of drawing them. I found ways to still make the characters in some way similar to the people that they're meant to be representing. So I will just show you how I go about making these portraits from beginning to end. I will first find a picture that I would like to use as a reference. So I'll be using this paper. It's a fine grain heavyweight paper by Thaler and Roni. I buy it in Modular or Bosner here in Berlin, but I find this weight quite ideal, and the texture is not too much, not too little for ink and watercolor. And this is A4 size, but then I cut it into quarters with this thingy. But you can just use scissors or a knife like this. Also don't know what it's called, X-Acto knife. For the sketch you will need a pencil. I'm using just a B hardness pencil, an eraser. It's okay to make mistakes. For the outlines I will ink them with a small brush. This is by a brand Da Vinci size 1, and I also buy them in Modular or Bosner. Inking might take some practice. If you feel more comfortable, you can also use a brush pen, but be sure to use something that is waterproof if you're going to be using watercolors after. For coloring, I will be using these Schminke watercolors. Anything goes with watercolors. These I've been using for like 3-4 years there. I'll soon need to replace some of them, but they're great. And just some paper or a cloth to wipe your brush in, and a glass of water. That's us, Sebi, Eddie and me. The shape of a head is always just a bit like an eggy. I try to match like people who have a bit rounder head, I do it a bit rounder. People with a bit slimmer head, a bit more ovally. This is about Sebi. And here it's always just important to make sure that you kind of gauge that the whole body is going to come in the frame. My head is a bit like slimmer. Then with the nose you can kind of show a bit in what direction the character is looking, and with the eyes as well. I normally do just dots for eyes, but my eyes are a bit like basically more of like little lines, not completely like just dots, but because then with lines you can also kind of gauge where the person is looking into. If it's straight, they go more straight. If they go more into the right, they go more angle to the right. The ears, I like the ears a little sticking out like this. The nose, I have this new way of doing the nose. It's changed a little bit over the years, but I kind of like it like this, flipped up a little bit. Also here you can look at the person's nose and try to do it a little bit more how their nose is shaped. More like this, more like this. I used to do them quite pointy like this. Maybe like currently I've been doing them a bit more like this. And then the size also depends, the angle can be more sideways or more up. You can play with that. It's nice to have a little bit of a similarity to the person's real nose. Okay, I have this little cap. Should I draw myself with a cap or without a cap? I think without. I like to do eyebrows as well. Sadie has a bit of a beard. See how just little tiny details, you can already see the differences in our heads. A bit of a wider shoulder for the guys. He's gonna hold Eddie with the hand hanging down by the body like this. I always do the thumb like this. Just a few fingers like that. The format is so small that really you can simplify certain body parts. You don't have to do everything super detailed. If there's 4 fingers, that's completely fine. Nobody's not gonna know. A little bit of a sleeve here hanging over. My arm goes under his arm like this. Like that. And a red turtleneck, which I think is gonna be nice for a Valentine's Day themed drawing. Just be flexible. Do changes that you want to do. You don't have to follow the picture completely. I always have this skirt with the buttons. I'm wearing it today. I have a crossbody bag here, but I think I would like to add something into this hand. So when the hand is holding something, I like to just draw like this. Sabi's coat. A nice collar like this, like a little bit like this. That looks like Sabi. His thumb here, he's gonna be holding the leash with Eddie. This, buttons here. I think he's got 2 pockets here. Sometimes here on the bottom it's difficult because my shoes are gonna be meeting Sabi's shoes and it looks like I'm standing on him. So sometimes when the characters are too close together, you can just do one shoe from very front, like this. And then the other one I like to do more sideways. I like to also give myself some freedom with my footwear. I draw myself a little ballerina, something like this. One's gonna be also flipped more front. He's standing here, but let's draw him sitting so he fits better in the drawing. He's gonna be looking at us. For the path, just to add some texture on the ground. Where do I sign? Maybe on my bag. So beautiful, these trees. Maybe I'm gonna use this for the background. Okay. Some cypresses and some pine trees. And the pines, to make them they're really like nice and see-through and airy, so I'm gonna do that with some needles like that. I think I'm happy with the sketch, and let's get to inking now. For inking, you will already need a glass of water. It's important to wet the brush sometimes while you go, because ink dries quite quickly, and if you don't clean the brush right after, it can really stick together and you might not be able to use it anymore. Just to absorb the water, the excess. It's sometimes good to have like a little extra paper just to like wipe off the brush as you go. Dip it. I always like to take away the excess and then just slowly trace the lines. I really like a little bit uneven line that the ink and brush gives you. Always just try not to smudge it. If you have to take a break to, dry part of the drawing that you've inked already, it's totally fine. Better doing that than smudging it. And it doesn't have to be like super tidy. I think this little quirks and the variation in the line is really what I like about this. It is something that I always do in my illustration, the ink lines. I haven't yet found a nice way to do it digitally. So even when I do commercial work and when I color digitally, I still ink by hand. Long lines is always just to do in one go. It's always better to do it like that than taking a break and continuing. It's always gonna be smoother. So in this small format, that's always easier to do than in a big one. When you're not sure if the ink is dry yet or not, you can see if it's shiny, then for sure it's still wet. Okay, as we get towards the faces, this is where you really have to be careful because it's so small and mistakes are really visible in the face. Everywhere else it can kind of be hidden, but the face you really have to be careful with and just be really patient. I'm gonna have to concentrate, so I'm gonna be quiet and just go over the lines very carefully. Really make sure you don't have too much ink on your brush for this part. The ink outlines are dry and I'm just gonna slowly erase carefully the excess pencil marks. The ink is really secure on, but I still don't want to push too much to not take any pigment away. I'm gonna get my watercolors ready. Okay, these are a few brushes I'm gonna be using. You don't really need much. I'm using just round synthetic brushes for watercolor. I have like a white skin color here that I can use, but I always mix in a little bit of white and a little bit of a red, a little bit of a pink, sometimes a little bit of a brownish. And with coloring, you just want to be careful to always color the surface that you want to color in one color in one go, as the color is still wet, because if it dries and then you continue, it's gonna get streaky. Where the color is quite light, like here I mixed in a little bit of a white, it does get a little bit of opacity, so I try to not go directly over the eyes and the nose and the mouth, because I like to keep that black, quite dark black. But with other colors I really don't think it's really shown over the ink. See how I'm just trying to go as fast as I can to not let the color dry and make it streaky. Sometimes I go over a little more while it's wet to add some more paint to make it a little darker, add some shade. But I always like to add a little bit of a pinkish for the cheeks, and I wait for that until the first layer of skin is dry, and then I go over, because otherwise some funky stuff can happen. I don't know, color can spread too much, or the pigment just focuses on the outside of the dots that I make for cheeks, so I try to avoid it. And then again, just try to go fast before the colors dry. You can be a little messy, it doesn't have to be like color fully until the edges. What I quite like about this way of painting with this outline, the outline is quite stark and tidy, and then with the color you really have some more freedom to be a bit looser. Sometimes I also just like get a bit impatient and go over, even though it probably would be better to wait for it to dry. My jacket I'm gonna do a bit darker. Actually, I think I'm gonna get Sebi's coat a bit darker. I'm gonna wait for it to dry completely, and I'm gonna go over. I don't like to do that, but I'm gonna get it a bit darker. I don't like to go too much because watercolor does wet the paper. If you go over one area too often, it will start flaking, or just the texture becomes a bit weird. Making really fast. As fast as I can. It's a little bit of a texture. Right, I'm gonna do Sebi's jeans now. Make some white, mix it in his coat color. Do the lines to my coat, add some texture like this. What if I make Eddie's little sweater like with hearts on? Like pink with hearts for Valentine's Day. I think I'm gonna do that. Eddie's gonna laugh at me, I don't care. Oh, Eddie. I think that's gonna be really sweet. Here I'm going to go where I had our skin mixed, and I will just add some pink in it. Just make it a little bit of a pinkish, like white skin color. Wipe down a lot, like you don't need much. I sometimes just go in my hand and take it off. Well, like also take all the water off. This really can be just very dry. And then go and just super lightly add a touch of a color, just the tiniest bit. And add some here to his beard. Let's get to the background. I will take a little bit of a bigger brush now. This can be actually a bit more messy. I don't want to completely color the surface. I want to make it quite airy like that because it is dark and they are quite airy, so a bit like this. Just little dots with the brush. I will add some of this green as little shades under the trees, a little bit cooler greenish. Like this, just little patches of where the shades would be. Just go over into some little splotches, dots, to add some depth. Like that. And then I will add a little bit of a beigey gray on the ground. Blob. Now I think I will do the sky just very lightly. I'm gonna clean up this blue because I think I went in with the black earlier. Messily like this. I think it's quite nice to keep some white space. Like that. I might add a little bit of a yellow just to maybe have a little bit of a sun showing somewhere through, just around here, the trees. Just add some sun. I think it does add a little bit to add something bright like this. And now for the trees, what there's missing is the tree trunks. Okay, I'm going to add one more layer of the browns, a little bit. I'm not even waiting this time for it to wait. Oh, see, here I smeared a little bit, but it's not too bad. Even if it happens, you can dip a little bit into water. Just a little edge of the paper napkin you dip into water and it will work as an eraser. It's not too bad, it's fine, but always need to be careful. I will scan the drawing and I will show you how it looks like in proper light. I hope you enjoyed this Draw With Me tutorial. I hope you had fun and that you really like your mini portrait. I'm sure whoever is gonna get your mini portrait is gonna be super happy, or you could just get to keep it for yourself. Let me know if you would like to have more drawing videos with me. I'll be happy to start doing more of these. So if you have any ideas, please write me below in the comments and I might do it. Thank you so much and see you soon!